understanding for this activity, looking at the components of the blood, it's during my body systems unit, so we're looking at the functions of the circulatory system. And generally, it's pretty basic, kind of introductory, because we do all the body systems in like 8 weeks. And so we're just kind of doing a little rough overview.
Calculate percents. It's 7,4D, my T, and the science just makes it cooler.
Yeah, and we're using measurement, mass. I mean, you have to understand measurement, both science and math, so it's pretty universal. But yeah, those are my teaks. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the video. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed. Oh yeah, you can't fit it right in. Oh, sorry.
Did you get some?
Speaking of,
Did you get some?
I'm trying to figure out just how to do this. It's not because I worked yesterday. I just unplugged and replugged.
When y'all were not in here, it was working.
Yeah, so we're just fine. It actually worked out better because the first thing I had up was Mr. Shin. So that works.
So this is what I show in my math classroom, this video that you're about to see, first thing. This is not the first time that they've calculated percents. This is just another activity where they get to apply it. So this is not like day one, learn about percents. So how are y'all doing so far this week?
We're doing great.
Surviving.
Very quick.
I have a question.
Bring these learning tools.
Something to do with.
Yes, ma'am.
The 7,4D, is that the TEKS that, for the current year or
Yes,
for
ma'am.
the new year?
Yes, ma'am, I revised it.
It is, okay,
Yes,
good,
ma'am.
good.
Yes, ma'am.
The candy did heighten my senses.
Instantly.
If you're like me, by this time, you're like running out of juice, running out of juice.
No, I just didn't want to we're a rabbit, but we're not that bad. It's like lose a hand.
My screen. Not that my desktop.
They're just chocolate in general, you might get hurt.
We may have to go with Plan B and just show us an iPad.
This is a close out of my first year.
I know, I told you
We got
last summer. We started in October, okay, so you guys are, so really, this is really the beginning of our first year. Okay, because then we're going to begin okay, so that's our first year. Okay, all right. No, like I'm trying to figure out where to go.
This is in our responsibility, my teacher was second.
Tim. Tim and Donna. Donna's not here.
Everybody else is different.
You may have started. Your first official year
Oh, it's on.
I heard something.
Okay, so maybe if you're really quiet, you might be able to hear it. I wish.
We're done. Thank you.
Sorry, I know it's probably really hard for y'all to hear, but it doesn't wanna plug in to this.
So it just goes through the components of the blood, it talks about the plasma, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the plasma. Did I get all four? And the what? Platelets, thank you very much. So, and I tell them, like, I know in science you're studying the circulatory system, blah, 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 we talk about how it's so cool, that, you know, have any of you ever fallen, and, you know, you talk about cuts and bleeding, and, you know, find the grossest, you know, fall, and, you know, so we talk about all that, and then we, you know, to try to hook them, I'm like, and they're wanting to pay attention. And they also remember, I'm like, okay, who remembers the function of the, you know, platelets, and then, you know, they'll raise their hand, or sometimes I just do the popsicle sticks. If y'all don't do them, y'all should, they're awesome. Write everybody's name on a popsicle stick, just have them in a cup, and you just randomly select, that way they're on point, or they're supposed to be on point, on their toes all the time. It's awesome, and then you're not picking on anybody, you know, because you just pull the stick, hey, I called you again. And am I leaving anything out? I don't think so. That's kind of how it goes. Yes, ma'am.
I was also going to share with the popsicle sticks, there is an app for your iPad called Stick Picks. And you can load your classroom in there. Not only that though, you can also type in the level of questions that it'll give you a question STEM starter on that particular kid. So if you have a kid that's having a hard time applying information, then if it picks that child's name, it will give you question STEM starters on application to help that kid with applying some knowledge. Yes.
What was it called again?
It's called Sticks Picks.
Sticks.
Stick Picks. S-T-I-K. I believe it's P-I-X.
Jennifer is going to actually write out or print out some apps that we have, and we'll add that to it, so you don't need to write it down. We'll do that for you. Okay,
No, that's awesome.
There-
No, I mean, and it's also part of your BDOS, like they check, you know, like did you call on mostly boys, or did you call on mostly girls, or, you know, what have you, so it does really help. Hi. Hi, good.
there are a lot of ways you can do this kind of thing, and something I saw that I thought was clever and that you could really have a lot of variation with it, is this teacher had at each desk a picture of a scientific piece of equipment that they were going to use in that grade level. And so instead of a number on that seat, it was that, you know, it was a graduated cylinder or something like that. And so on the stick, he would call on the graduated cylinder, you know, it's,
They would have to know who they are.
well, you do after a while. But you could change it each 6 weeks, you know, depending on what, and I could see it used even with concepts maybe, or, you know, yeah. Anybody else see anything clever?
Well, there's another app where you can draw names, like I work with elementary kids, and it's got sound effects and pictures and their name, like, you can draw a rabbit out of a hat, or a star out of the sky, and they have different images that I put on the screen, so I don't have to say anything, and they get all excited when their name's up there, until they realize they have to answer a question.
Just something that worked for me with the stick was, so I teach middle school, and sometimes something that's kitty will work for them, and sometimes it won't. Like they want a sticker, and sometimes they like a sticker really. But what I noticed was, when you call the sticks and they're like, please don't pick my stick, and they're like looking at you, grab them. Well, when I thought, well, let me give them a smelly sticker, they would be like, can you make sure my stick's in there? Can you make sure you put it back? I mean, just for a smelly sticker. Yes. Well, and depending, like if they were on the, but still, like they knew a reward would come. So not only that their stick was picked, but that there was some. Rather than cringing at the stick picking,
Yeah.
Yep, that's why I knew exactly what was gonna happen. So just like the kids, make sure you tell them not to touch the supplies until you're ready. That's what happens. So we just wanted to kind of run through so that those of you that got to listen to the planning part of what we were talking about, we wanted you to be able to at least see what the kids do. And the one thing about this lab is it does get kind of expensive depending on the size of your classes. Like if you have like 150 kids, talk to your principal, talk to some department head about helping you with supplies. A lot of them, like corn syrup, I know we keep in our department. They order at the beginning of the year, and that's the most expensive part. The Red Hots I get like, is less than $1 for, if you get the HEB version. Okay, I never buy any actual like Red Hots. I always buy the Hill Country Fair. Those of you that live in San Antonio, I'm sure understand that as well. And so, yeah, like, it's the marshmallows and the Red Hots and rice and the plasma. And so talking about what each thing represents, we talk about that ahead of time. What do the Red Hots, obviously that's the easy one.
Jen, could I interrupt you here about the money, because that's important. In fact, Jen and Z and I've had lots of experiences together, and this was another one of them, that you suddenly need something for in the morning. And in one of our conversations with their administration, this came up, and the administrator said, well, we have a open credit or something at HEB that you can just go get it. And none of the teachers knew. I mean, they had the procedure in place, and so ask your principal, what is the procedure for spending money on expendables like that, and that you need to get right then. You know, do they want to reimburse you for it? Do they have a credit that somewhere? You know, what is their procedure?
Yeah, because I know that's with STEM, and even then it's kind of like, they really don't want us to do it that way. They put in a purchase order, and you know how it is, and like 6 weeks later, you finally get your supplies, so you really have to plan ahead.
But that's why you explain to your administrator up front and have them come in and see the kind of supplies that you need, and ask them if they don't have any procedure, could you perhaps email them that night and they could pick it up at the store for you?
Did you share that suggestion with them?
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Alright, so like we were saying, so the Red Hots obviously represent the red blood cells. I don't think anyone had to guess on that one. Who knows what the marshmallows are gonna represent? White blood cells. White blood cells. And then we try to go with size as well. And then the rice. And then the corn syrup and plasma. And so, Cooking Fair, basically, they start mixing supplies. Now, we actually give them.
I put them in groups of 4, and it works out perfect because there's 4 components, so each person gets to touch something, you know, and because you know how they are. Everybody wants to do everything, so.
And this actually started out, the first year I did this, I did it in my classroom. And then the next year, because of the way they changed our scope and sequence, we used to have 12 weeks for body systems, and then they decided they want us to teach the exact same thing, but in 8 weeks. And so this was one of the ones that I ended up having to cut out, and they were like, oh, well, we'll do it, because there's so much math in it. And so it was perfect, and that's where sometimes it's really nice for those of you that have counterparts that are very helpful in that respect. And so yeah, so we actually give them this table, give them the grams in comparison, and then they have to figure out what percent are the white blood cells to the blood itself, and then put those in the blood cells and everything else. So they actually have to measure it out, put it all together, and then calculate the percentages.
And so what I'm doing, basically the group of 4 does, and and we use beakers, so they'll measure out, are you showing them? Yeah, okay.
And the beakers are nice because obviously using real measuring tools, you should always use real measuring tools. Too loud. But beakers are also nice. It's a mess and a pain to clean. It didn't take that long to do.
I don't have sinks in my room.
But the nice thing about the beakers is that it's clear, and that's why we brought the base. We don't have our beakers right now, they're all at school. But it's cool when you can actually see exactly what it is. And I know we've used cups in the past, but then the cups are really cloudy, so you don't see everything. And then it's not using proper measuring tools for it. And it's fun for them to get to see. We talk about that visual, like you look at the rice, like can you guys see how much rice you just put in? Or you should really do this with these beforehand. There you go. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but you start looking, like, the platelets.
Very little.
It's like this tiny little, like,
There's
when you
like
put it in
4
your hand,
marshmallows
it's literally
and-
like a little quarter size of that. It's almost nothing. And so
Then?
in my class, we talk about like what they do and how important they are and how even though there's not that many, you know, they're still doing this very important job of protecting you and helping you heal and all that kind of stuff.
And I just buy skewers to mix it. And then I usually give them, like little plastic cups, cause they all wanna take it home. They all wanna eat it too, but I tell them don't do that. So, they've never eaten it in front of me, behind my back. But, I mean, it would have been more fun if y'all would have been able to do it, obviously, but we're showing you, this is what it is, this is how it works, it takes, you saw me, how long did it take me? It takes the kids 4 times that length, okay? Yeah, 4 times that length. And then I'm kind of OCD and I get a little nervous because I don't have sinks in my classroom. So I just get like butcher paper and cover my tables and then I have them. It's like very like, okay, now you're gonna get your rice or your, you know, so. But yeah, I was very proud of myself when I took this on because I was very nervous, but it really worked out. And so they'll complete that data table and then they'll calculate the percent of each component of blood.
And I'll tell you what, all year long, they remember the platelets and the blood cells, what they do, they remember all that. Just from doing this activity, this is way back in like September, October, and I can ask them again in May, and they'll still know.
That's super cool that you showed us. I have a student right now who is struggling with taking word problems that are percents to get like, the form of P over 100 times what number equals X. She just cannot get it. I might try to help her. She's just having a heck of a time.
Well, and for those of you that are interested, eventually,
She doesn't understand like that it's a part out of a whole, but we want to compare it to 100. So maybe if you get like 5 kids to stand up in front of the room and, or
It's
I don't
just
know.
me and her.
Oh, okay. Well, draw pictures like Dr. Pepper, Coke. And so this is 2 people out of 5 people that prefer Dr. Pepper. But what makes a percent so special and so universal is that the denominator is always 100. We always compare to 100. That's why it's understood all around the world. So she needs to understand that before you do this over this equals this over this. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
no, that was pretty
Oh,
much,
okay.
I mean, that's pretty much what this is showing right here. Looking at the parts of the whole, we're comparing the white blood cells to all of the
And they
blood,
have
the
a
whole
hard
entire
time
mass.
with the white blood cells.
Cause it's
Half-
such a small percent.
Half of a percent, less than 1% of your blood. But I mean, and the platelets, like, oh my goodness, then we start talking about this. The platelets are, I mean, obviously all of the components of blood are important, but I mean, me, not being a science person, you know, I'm just thinking I cut myself and blood's gushing. I mean, come on, you know, I mean, the platelets are so important. But look at that. I mean, mathematically, I mean, sometimes in math we wouldn't even count that, you know, I mean, we would completely disregard that, mathematicians, you know, sometimes. But in this case, they see that sometimes those, you know, that's why you have to understand these percents less than 1. Because look at how it plays a vital, you know, part in your blood. So,
Yay, I love that.
they do well with like 50%, and, you know, 10%, but you go to like 4/5%, whoa, so.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
of you that are science-based know that a lot of times that's what ends up happening when you look at, you know, even the crust in comparison to the mantle and the core and all that, or looking at space, you start talking solar system and how we're this tiny little blip in this like big, huge thing.
That's that messy data we were talking about on the first day. Remember, the math people live in this nice little beautiful little world that we can manipulate and make all come out even and everything. Science people deal with real data. So
But-
your kids need to deal with real data.
If you take out your phone right now and you do that division 2 divided by 373, and it's not, they have to round,
Yes.
you know, so if you do it right now, please do it right now. I know you all have your phones, so get them out and do it real quick.
Are you sure, Rowan?
You have to come back after the calculation.
But just so you can see, they have to round to 44%. They have to round to 55%.
No,
And then you'll see the decimal when you do the 2 divided by 373. So, I mean, it's very, 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 very it can be very challenging for some of them. But it's okay, I mean, cause they're into it, like they want to find it, you know, because they just got to make the soup and they're all, you know, excited, so. That they have to, that it's not, it doesn't come out like beautiful like that, that's all I wanted you to see.
So you had them round it?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
that's what I was
yes,
wondering, like,
yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, and they also know that if it's everything, that it has to add up to 100%, you know, so we do talk about that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, you can make
No, I don't say, okay, everybody go get a calculator, but if somebody asks me, I say absolutely go. Because, I mean, in the real world, you have that readily available. Can I use my phone? But I don't announce it. Because some kids can do the division by hand, no problem. I wouldn't want to do that. I have a math degree. But, hey, I'm not going to, you know, like, stand in your way. If that's what you want to do, you go for it, you know. So, to answer your question, I'm sorry?
They get to use that on the end of course exam too.
I think this year, 8th grade does. This year. Last year, 6, 7, 8 were not able to use calculators. Algebra, they were. But I believe this year, as long as the state doesn't change their mind, because you never know, this year, 8th graders supposedly are going to be able to use calculators.
Yeah, this question?
I was gonna ask, do you ever show them an example of what blood looks like without any red blood cells in it?
No.
No? If you go and you donate blood, like, my blood's O negative, so they call me like all the freaking time. And one time I went down there and I normally just do the 1 unit. Well, they wanna do 1 unit of pure red blood cells. So they run your blood, they take a whole unit out, run it through a centrifuge machine, and you have half a unit of red, and then you have basically the contents of a beer bottle. Your blood without red blood cells, it's like
Yeah, I used
nice
to
and
do it
yellow,
last
and it's
time.
nice and frothy at the top. It's really cool. So when I did that, I thought it was really neat, so I took a picture of it a long time ago.
That is cool, I've never.
Could you take another picture for us, Sean?
No, I looked on my phone, I don't have it, it's on my old phone, I'll.
You gotta go donate again.
We need next time.
For the purpose of science.
I can probably find it here.
You go find a picture.
Oh yeah, no, I have it somewhere, it's hilarious, I showed as many people as I could just to make the joke, like, look,
See,
we're
that
gonna
would be
do.
cool, because I used to donate plasma when I was in college, because I was a poor college student, and $45 a week was like a lot.
Yeah.
And it was easy, and they would do like the opposite, they would go centrifuge out and keep the plasma, but we never got to see it. That would be
Yeah.
really neat.
Every time I go, they want me to do that, so they can get 2 whole units of O negative instead of just one they have to sift stuff out of. So the problem is it like kills you for the rest of the day.
Let's see, oh, so that's, since we started doing it, so that this was in math, so in math class, they were doing this activity. In my class, one thing I didn't wanna cut out, and so I still keep it in mind, is using the heart rate probes. If you guys have ever gotten to use like the heart rate monitors, what is it, Vernier? Those are really cool, and we look at different things, looking at activity, recovery time, all the kind of basics. And actually, Dr. Weston wanted us to look at our TEEPs and kind of look to see where we have,
Alignment? Or
alignment or
misalignment.
misalignment, and I think, wasn't rate the one that we figured out?
No.
That's works now?
Yeah.
Okay. That was-
Surface
okay.
area.
Oh, that's right, surface area was the one where I usually am talking about surface area in September, October, and they're not actually.
We don't get to it until February,
Right.
so, bless you, bless you.
So that's, I know a couple years ago I had that issue when I was doing digestion, and so I actually got manipulatives from the math classrooms, and we're using the, what is it, the 100 centimeter cube block,
Base 10 blocks?
base 10 blocks, but it was like a cube, and then I had a bunch of the little blocks, and so then we were talking about basically what we were talking about earlier with the candy. Thankfully,
what-
this one will work out.
When we're having these conversations, discussions, arguments, whatever you wanna call them.
Happy times.
Happy times. This is what I use. So Dr. West was referring to scope and sequence. This is our revised scope and sequence for 7th grade. So it tells us, you know, the order that we're gonna do things and the duration. You know, how long are we gonna do this, that, the other. And so I just use a combination like Jen was asking me some questions in the car ride over here, and I was like, hold on, let me check. So I just use this, like, well, you know, and it doesn't mean that I'm really gonna be here, but you know, give or take a week or two, I'll be in that area, you know, I mean, because I'm always behind. I'm sure you know that. But this is very, very helpful. So I'm sorry for saying that I don't have this.
They don't have that. Oh, that's.
So
Yeah, like mine for science, they have this version, but then they also put it all in an all-in-one. And so this is what they call our YAG, our year to glance. And so it basically starts out with August, how much time you're spending on that unit, and then the teaks that should be covered during that time.
Oh, see, that's super cool.
So do you see any conflict like you did with sixth grade?
That was
the
we were
surface
saying
area
Surface
is
area.
a major one because she's doing it.
September, October, in fact,
I wrote it down. She's doing it in October.
Yeah, October.
In your body
Yeah,
systems.
that's our body systems and.
Okay, and we don't get to that until February. So I'm like, oh, that's not gonna work. But yeah, exactly. You know, girl. So, but it will be helpful because when I get to it in February, I can go back. Like, remember in science when you were talking about body systems? I'll talk to her about. I'll be like, okay, I'm about to do surface area. What do you call it? And I remember she had to teach me Billy.
Yeah,
Okay, the Billy.
That's a big
Because I was like, is it
thing.
Billy? I didn't know. So I can just like scaffold, like go back and spiral, not scaffold, spiral for her, and it'll take like 2 minutes. I mean, it's not like it's gonna take all this time out of my math class to just go back and say, remember in science when you were talking about blah 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 blah, and they'll remember, and it helps her. So.
Did you have that same YAG this year?
Yeah, they've been doing this for a couple of years now. They started doing it.
Okay, well, my question is then, did you have a problem with surface area? Did your students have a problem with surface area because they already have the math skills for that? So they shouldn't have had any problem with surface area, right? They don't have the math skills.
We did not have
Still-
that.
Surface area was still after when I taught it.
I know, but isn't that just a ratio?
Because what surface area used to be an 8th grade team, right?
It used to be 8th.
So it's actually just now getting moved down to 7th.
Yes.
So, yeah.
True.
So it was still
And
out of order.
and what's surface area in math?
It's a basically.
No, I know what surface area is, but I mean, I'm sorry, in science, how is science needing surface area in seventh
I use
grade?
it with digestion, looking at the Billy, and helps
Oh,
them
okay.
understand the process of breaking down of food. And then I also use it in photosynthesis. We talk about the difference between deciduous leaves and coniferous leaves, because that's something that's brought up during our adaptations unit. So I have the kids look at the different types of leaves, and we talk about the surface area of the leaf and how it allows more light to hit it.
But it's just 2 units, and she has experience or something like that.
Now, this that you have, was that made by your district? Like,
Yes.
okay, so there's some, y'all don't have to do it, someone else does it for you, and then
Somebody else does.
same with those, I don't know, but is that
Yeah,
one?
because the nice thing is, like, our district doesn't give us lessons in science to do. Like, they give a couple, and they're like, okay, you might try these, but everything else we kind of come up with together. But they do give us this, which is nice,
Match
the
off
teaks
that.
that we should be covering and about how long we should be spending on it, so.
Our district just recently adopted this book, so they literally went like chapter by chapter and did that. That's what it is.
What is that?
McGraw-Hill.
Yeah,
It's brand new.
yeah, they're pretty cool, the workbooks, we almost.
This is, I mean, I've never used it, this will be my first year. I don't use like just one resource, I use multiple resources, but I'm gonna give it a try and see, pick what I like and pick what I don't like. There's Dr. Brown.
You could have gone all day with that.
I was so ecstatic when I saw you. I was at the workshop. I was like, oh my gosh, I know her. Like, she's famous and I know her.
Not famous, infamous.
Well, in my little world, you're famous. So. And Lori was there too, sitting next to me, so we were both like. So,
What about the science, what did y'all adopt?
We didn't. The Fusion, those were the ones that most of us voted on, but they were just too expensive because they wouldn't allow us to just do class sets. You had to buy a workbook and then a textbook for like every kid, and it was gonna be a lot. That's what they told us anyways. I was a little confused on all the different things. But then we did keep STEM scopes, and I really like what they're doing with STEM scopes for any of those of you that get to use it. It's really cool because they're adding in math connections and engineering connections and all these different things. So they're finding ways and giving people ideas of, hey, you can integrate this using this. So it's kind of nice. I don't know if any of our districts have it, but I'll try and pull it up later so you can see.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Because I think that was pretty much it on Lesson Soup anyways.
Have you guys started looking in to see what you wanna do? You have?
Oh, yeah.
I have a question, because I've run into that problem a lot in teaching the science when they haven't had the math. And usually I end up being a math teacher at that moment because
Yeah, I usually end up talking to her.
Do you talk to the math teacher first?
yes,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
sometimes, like in your case, it's just not taught yet, or sometimes, yeah, like it's just not taught yet, so, and she's, or whoever there, it's not there yet, but because we're where we are, kinda have to become a math teacher, but so how do you do, cause I know you were saying like, don't be a math teacher, so how do you do it best without?
Well, let's back up
She
to the
was-
fundamental issue though. You should not have to teach the math first. You're at a
The reality
private
is.
school, I mean, you should be able, because it's a small unit, you should be able to have that horizontal alignment.
Well, see, what happened, like, when, like this, so I used to be in public school where I saw what you guys saw. Like when we did density, they hadn't done that yet in math, you know, stuff like that. Now I am in a private school, but we have classes where sometimes they're just levels and they're not, like they're just behind a little bit, but I'm still following the science teams. I'm still trying to go. I guess I'm just asking like, what's the best way to introduce the math without messing up what she'll get to and how she'll do it?
From my experience with Jen does not become the math teacher. Jen does not teach them formulas or anything in regards to surface area. Jen just wants them to have the big idea. So, I mean, you don't have to be a math teacher to introduce a big idea. You can get a rock or something and you can literally wrap it. Like I'm taking the surface area example. Get a hammer, now you have a million pieces and now the big idea is the wrapping. That surface area. So she, by no means, becomes a math teacher. No.
Well,
You
I
should
mean,
not
like,
become a math
when you
teacher
get to, like,
unless you're
the-
certified in math.
I go to the most basic part that I can to help them understand the science concept.
Yes.
And I talk to the math teacher and I tell them like, this is what they need to know, and she's really good about saying, okay, this is what you should say.
Okay.
And this is how you should say it.
And Jen will literally write it down
I did
and
that
say
when,
that.
when we were doing Punnett squares and they were having trouble understanding, she's like, just say, what is the probability that this event will occur? And once I started saying that, they were like, oh yeah, I totally get it, 75%. I'm like, oh, this is so much better.
Okay, when we were doing like, the chemical composition, and we had to make, of our natural rules, we had to make like the circle graphs. Then I had to, it's up to them to construct their circle graph, they hadn't done that in math yet. So then I'm like, okay, how do I show them how to make the circle graph without like completely confusing them or saying the wrong words? And I went to talk to her and she's like, well, we've done that, but I still felt kind of like,
So you just have to explain to her like, look, they need to understand this, and either I can say it wrong, or if you help me, like, I would like to know how exactly should I say it or approach it, just so they
Tell her,
understand
I don't wanna
this.
mess you up.
Yeah, how can I help you?
just communication.
Yes.
What can I do to help you?
Yes. Help me.
Yeah, cause that was the thing with Mix It Up, we figured out we were like using the same words, but meaning different things, and that happened a lot.
I teach in a small private school, and I've already gone to my math teacher and said, hey, why don't you just come in and explain this to my kids? Our rooms is like right across from each other. And she would come in and explain it to me, and it would take 5 minutes of her time, and she'll go back, and I'll be in her class, or she's in my class explaining to them.
That's
And
beautiful.
they hear it the way she wants them to know it.
Awesome. Idea.
And I also thought of another place I talked about surface area, because you talked about the rocks, I'm like, oh yeah, the little weathering and erosion. Yeah. Talk about about it again. So, it comes up a lot, apparently, in seventh grade.
We
And it's
do
not
have,
something, and once again, it's not something that other teachers might talk about, but I find it helps them understand it better. And I don't want to teach just to teach.
we do have some teachers who are thinking about theirs, so.
Oh, I know what I was thinking about too that we could talk about is, would it be okay with you guys if we shared what are some ideas or things that you guys have thought of? Where easy places that you can integrate math and science, or places that, you know, you use it, like in science, I was already thinking about, like, okay, well, I know I use it during my genetics unit, and I know I use it during digestion. Do y'all mind if we write some of that to help out other people that maybe are having trouble? Okay. Need some paper. Can we just write on the board?
Here, we have plenty of paper, Jen.
Yeah, paper?
Yeah.
Can't get the projector, but. Okay. So who's got some, what were some ideas? 'Cause I'm like, I just started writing stuff up.
You said it's learning about the, I like that. I'll just give it.
I'm sorry.
Back bar
My
skill.
handwriting is not as pretty.
I'm gonna do that.
Okay, so we got one. Who's got another one?
Yeah.
I do mixtures and solutions and fractions.
Ooh, yes. There's a really, really good CMP lesson in math for that. And it talks about like how orangey, like a, you know, like
Is that
a
when you do
tang or whatever.
We're gonna do, sixth grade, we're doing classified matter, and then we're getting into measurements, estimations, perimeter area volumes.
I missed it, sorry.
That's fine,
Classifying matter with measurements, so like,
Measurements,
how? What's, can you tell me more, please?
no, as they begin to classify, we'll go over, how they, well, we can go one, the estimating, what it's gonna be first, and then we actually do the measurements, how they're doing the measurements. And then, in addition to just doing, color and other things, we could do, quick little perimeters of where we just fall into this.
So do you mean like qualitative versus quantitative measure, like physical properties, taking qualitative observations and things versus like actually measuring them?
Yeah, and then doing both. So using the classifying the matter to.
You could also, you could also have them, because you're dealing with the word classify, which is, I mean, to me, it's just categorize. Is it categorize in science too?
Yep.
Okay, so all the different kinds of triangles that they have to know about, you know, like obtuse scaling, you know, acute, equilateral, and so that's another, right there, another way you could tie it in. You know, classifying matter, classifying triangles. I'm just thinking of that word classify, that's the same in math and
Well,
science.
because what you end up doing is you start going over all these different properties, and as we're doing the properties, we could be doing different T-charts, different graphs, we could be using our measurement tool.
Okay, I think I have to see more, because I'm still a little foggy, but, okay, yeah, I mean.
I saw that, because you said fifth grade, right, so physical properties, sorry, I printed out, I know a lot of y'all were fifth grade teachers, so I printed out, sorry, your glance.
Yes, 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 we can. Yes, absolutely. Beautiful, I love it. Good job, Brenda. Oh, wait, but the Punnett scores are for genetics.
No, that's ninth grade. But yeah, it's in ninth grade biology, they get way higher level, because you start looking at like dihybrid crosses.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it will,
Like, you
okay,
put
okay.
it seven.
Okay.
I'm gonna just.
I mean, and that goes all the way back to elementary school, when they're multiplying double digit times double digit. And when I was teaching algebra last year, I'm like, guys, you know how to do this. And I put like 25 on the board times 13. And, you know, made a little, 2 by 2. And so that's what I did at first.
Okay, now
So,
density.
you may wanna write that
math
down.
counterpart.
In elementary school, you already did this, double digit times double digit.
Ratio.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know there's something more.
already has math built
Oh,
in.
yeah, that's a lot of equations.
The
Yeah.
phase of the moon,
Yeah.
comparing them to rational numbers.
Force in motion. We got a force in motion over here, force in motion. We got a force in motion over here, did you hear me, Jen?
One eighth grade convert.
Oh yeah, there's so much for getting horses. Well, what's specific force of motion? Just
Like
bounce
the-
horses, like.
Well, yeah, I mean, for fifth grade, it's gonna be a little bit more simplistic than eighth grade, but in eighth grade, you have to have all the formulas and know how to find force or mass, and then speed and velocity
It's
as well.
basically equations,
So it's
like-
equations and knowing how to.
Yes.
plug it in.
Physics. Combined
Okay.
two.
Well, cause then you get into
That's
speed,
why that's my
speed
favorite
equals
class.
back at the ratios again.
Well, it's not that good. I like dropping
So,
it.
what was the relationship of forces of motion with your fifth grade?
For fifth grade, well, you get into the finding force, and that's.
No, I mean the math part.
It's equation,
Formula.
expression.
Expression, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for.
The actual math.
Whatever that is called.
Yeah, cause I think in seventh grade we do work, so we're looking specifically at work, force times,
Or 10 times.
force times mass. Whatever, I'll start. We'll go way back again, I've got so many different math things that I hit, cause then we look into. It's not force equals mass times acceleration, but it's power over force. It'll give you how they're going. It's not accelerate, because work goes into the power equation. It's object in this direction. Yeah, because it's.
Distance, force times distance.
My kids don't have to memorize the one that doesn't balance, get like 4 times.
Those are in the bags.
Scientific notation also in their solar system. But does it really go in a circle? It's an ellipse. Yeah.
It depends on which one you want to keep it very simple with just the basic work, which once you get out to like now, it goes into more ellipse, but it was a fairly circle.
It's mostly a circle.
Okay.
It's closer to a circle.
I thought it was an ellipse.
I mean, they start.
Barely.
Oh, okay.
They do
Good
some
to
stuff
know.
in sixth grade for that.
That, that's a misconception.
I thought sixth grade was still.
It's just crazy with that.
But anything with mirrors and looking at this, like.
Refraction, rotation. Transformation is the big umbrella.
There you go, make another tip.
Because the translation is the slide. So the transformation is all of it.
Motorcycle. You can always get into rates, we look at that sometimes. Plus 5 minutes.
In 2 days.
I'm sure they do. I haven't talked to them about it, but I'm sure they do. I don't know where. So basically something that's not consistent, but more like a scatter. I mean, I'm sure.
I what you're saying.
just got it right now.
We teach them with
And we looked at, and that's what we would write. Okay.
And it would just be all.
Sure.
What about like the I know that's one thing that we had to do with my school a lot, is like germ, like touching, like the way it moves wise, the more maybe contact with
I know it, I mean, to me, that speaks algebra, exponential functions. That's, I would say, bacteria growth, exponential functions. Alongside, that's what you wanted to see. I apologize. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
It doesn't say at my level, just getting into the car
Would y'all pay attention, please? At one point in time, they asked you to share with them their ideas. Is that what we're doing right now? Is that what we're doing right now? 'Cause I'm confused.
Yeah, we're sharing ideas with each other before we share it out to make sure it makes sense.
Okay.
That's what we're doing.
All right, is that okay with y'all? Because I want all of their ideas, I want all of their ideas up there.
Yeah, because I find that it works better that way when people
And
start
I
talking
might
to each
say
other.
it.
Yeah, y'all are the ones that are thinking about it a lot more than us.
Oh, what time are they supposed to, do they have to go somewhere else?
No, except home.
What time? What time do y'all are supposed to leave? 3:30?
3:45?
They got time. I just want
Are
to
they
make
doing
sure all
reflections or
this-
anything?
No, but they can, this can be some lesson planning time as well to plan their integrated lessons.
And that's what we're really started doing, honestly.
Yeah, because this is the first step. Like anytime you're doing an integrated lesson, this is where you start doing. You
Okay,
just start
so
looking at all the
as
connections.
y'all brainstorm, then tell Jen to write down what you've come up with, and then y'all continue with your group brainstorming, and Zenaida will walk around and make sure you're on task, right?
Yes. And if anyone wants to see, I've got.
You okay?
This is awesome. Yeah, if anyone wants, I have 6 seconds grade.
Can they have that?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Can they have your physical training?
yeah, that's fine. I don't want to change it. I just printed it off the TSC website.
Just they're starting to plan their integrated lessons.
Okay, so they're overwhelmed. So they're overwhelmed because it's like, Campbell, are you overwhelmed?
trying to figure out which to do. Just remember like the first time someone, when you were a student and your professor said, make a lesson and you felt a little overwhelmed? Yeah. It's the same way. It's the same thing. But it'll get better.
Yeah.
Well, are you trying to compare?
Well, I mean, I'm right now, I'm going back and forth because I'm like, okay, here we go. I was looking like, my point where this team right here is to report changes of weather and conditions. So why not use that with
There used to be some babies out there, but they're not there.
All